All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's training webinar. My name is Jamie Bruin, and I'm part of the support team here at SuiteFiles. Today's training webinar is the standard user training webinar. And basically, we're going to go through the web app, the Outlook add-on, and our SuiteFiles Drive app, which covers pretty much the basis for using SuiteFiles. What it doesn't cover is things like zero integration, templates, scanning, and that's what it doesn't cover. And admin features like managing permissions and things. That's actually in the webinar after this one. So just a bit of information before we get started. I am recording this training session. The recording will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, which is simply called SuiteFiles. There are already recordings of previous training sessions, which cover the same information. So if you would like to view any of those other recordings, feel free to do so at any time. Our YouTube channel is just called SuiteFiles. If you have any questions at any time, the best way to ask them is through the Q&A section in this webinar tool. I will be keeping an eye on the Q&A section. So if anyone has any questions, that's the best place to post them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the web app first, and we're going to kind of cover the whole process of logging in, setting up the app for the first time, and just kind of cover some kind of general information with it. And if anyone has any questions throughout that, just please feel free to put them through at any time. First of all, what we need to do is we need to access our SuiteFiles site. Now, my site will look slightly different to yours. But basically, the site that I'm going to go to is called demosuite.sharepoint.com. And your site should be your company name or something around your company name.sharepoint.com. You might have a /site/sf at the end. If you do, you'll probably be aware of that, and you'll just need to enter that in as well. If you have no idea what I'm talking about there, then all you need to do is type in your company name.sharepoint.com and press enter. Or just go to the URL, should I say. And what you're going to do, you're going to get this login prompt here. So it's going to ask you to log into Microsoft Office. And what you need to do is you need to enter your Microsoft Office 365 email address. And then your Office 365 password. So just take a note of the fact that this is using your Microsoft Office login, which means if you ever need to reset your password or have any trouble with it, that's actually managed by your Microsoft Office account as opposed to the SuiteFiles apps. Cool. Okay, so now that our SuiteFiles site has loaded, we're currently at the home screen. We're just going to go through the layout here, not in too much detail because we'll cover everything further on. Basically, on the left-hand side, you have your folders displayed. In the very middle here, we have some columns, but we can't actually see anything. This is where the files will be displayed. The top left, we have the SuiteFiles logo. If we actually navigate into a folder, the SuiteFiles logo at the top left here also doubles as a home button and will always take you back to the home screen of your SuiteFiles site. At the very top middle, we have a search bar. This is where you can use the search functions to search for your files or folders. And just under the search bar here, we have our navigation tabs, things like your file system view, which is what you're currently in by default. Then you have your favorites, your recents, your images, tasks, scans, the More tab, and the More tab will display different options here depending on what your permissions are. So a standard user should only be able to see View Recycle Bin here, and an admin would be able to see Manage Users and Groups, Manage Templates, and that View Recycle Bin. Unless you have specific permissions for managing templates, which my login currently does, and in that case, you will have an option here for Manage Templates. At the very top right of the screen here, we have a Provide Feedback button. This will send through a feedback form to our support team. Just be aware this is sending it from your email address that you're currently logged in with. So as long as you're monitoring that mailbox, it's a totally okay and very easy way to contact support. If you won't be monitoring that mailbox, it'll be best to send in an email from your normal email address, but whatever you write in here goes straight through to our support team. At the side of that provide feedback button, we have a little notification bell here. Any notifications that come through when files are shared with you, for example, will pop up here. At the very top or far right of the screen here, we have our username. Our username actually doubles as a menu button. So if we click on that, we'll get a little drop-down menu where we have things like our user settings, the download center for the apps, a link to our help center, another button for providing feedback, and then the option to log out of the Office 365 account that we're currently signed in with. So that's the layout of the screen. What we want to do now is actually go ahead and set up our user settings, or our kind of preferences. And this is going to basically set up the way that things behave and kind of go about things by default. So this is kind of important to do to make sure that things are going to work how you'd like them to. So if we go ahead now and click on where it says user profile settings, like so, we're going to have a few tabs here. The one that we're really interested in for now is this file preferences tab. So if we actually click on this, it gives us a few options. Now the first option here is for showing archived content. Whatever is currently blue is the currently selected option. So for showing archived content, it's currently set to no. So we won't be able to see archived content. And what archived content is it's any files or folders that have been archived, and archiving hides them from view. So if you archived a client folder, for example, and you went into your client's folder in SuiteFiles, you would no longer see that client's folder. And you'd have to either change your settings to show archived content like this to be able to view it again, or you'd have to have someone else unarchive the folder for you. But either way, you'll only be able to see anything that's been archived if you change this to yes. It's basically the exact same kind of thing as having a hidden file or a hidden folder on your local computer. If you have hidden files or hidden folders on your computer in Windows, then in the File Explorer, there's actually a setting that would say show hidden items. It's the exact same kind of idea, exact same functionality, really. So that's that setting. The next setting is for showing times and dates. Now this is just basically to do with a column. So I'll show you what that's actually talking about there. Let me just close the settings window. Now, when you do close the user settings window, it automatically saves those settings, just so you're aware. Okay, so if we go, as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of archived content now being displayed, and that was because my user settings, I had toggled this to showing archived content, so it's all displayed. I'm just going to change that back to no, and close that. And what we're going to see now, if we go back to our Files tab, is that all of that archived content is now hidden from view again. But I'm going to go into a client folder that has some files, like this one. And there's a column here for dates last modified. Now you'll see here that we have a date as well as a time. That setting in our user preferences for whether we have timestamps being displayed, that determines whether it shows a time in this column or not. If you have it set to no, then it's only going to display this date here. If you set it to yes, then it will also include the time. So completely up to you, just one of those personal preference thing. And in this file preferences tab, it's really all about personal preference, other than show archived content, which might have a bit more kind of meaning. But you can change that to no for showing times and dates, and that will just hide time from being displayed in that column. The next option is for opening Office files in the browser. This determines whether by default, when you click on an Office document within your site, whether it opens into the online version of the Office web apps, or if it opens up into the desktop version of the Office apps, like the desktop Excel or Word apps, for example. Currently, I've got this set to yes. So when I open up an Office file in my site, it's going to open it up in the browser or online version of the Office web apps. I'm just going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. So let's say we have a Word document here called intro letter. I'm going to click on that to open it up. And what it's doing is it's opening it up in the online version of Word here. It's actually showing a preview. And then I have two buttons at the top right here for determining how I can open it from this preview. I could actually click Open in Office, and this would open it up into the desktop version of the Word app. Or I could click Edit in Browser, like so. And this allows me to actually edit the document in the online version of the Word app. Now, the online version is very quick to open. And we can actually click this Go Full Screen button if we want to take up the whole screen and actually make good use of the screen size. I think it was escape to exit that view. Yeah. What you will find is that the online versions of the Office apps won't have as many options and functions as the desktop ones, as they're just running in the browser. However, if we change our settings now so that we actually open that file into the desktop app. So let's go into our file preferences here. Let's change opening Office files in the browser to no. Close that settings window. Let's now click on a Word document, and you'll get this little pop-up, and this is asking you if you'd like to open that file in the Word app. You want to tick the box and click the Open button. And you do need to be reasonably quick because that pop-up is only displayed for a limited amount of time. Cool. Okay, so we can see that this document has opened up in the full desktop version of the Word app. Now, you will notice that takes a bit longer to open up than if we're just opening it in the browser. However, the kind of trade-off there, or the benefits to opening it into the desktop app, is you get all of the functionality of the full desktop Word app. So really up to you as to how you prefer to work. For Excel files, you'll probably find that the online version of the Excel app, for example, isn't able to do things like, I think there's quite a lot of features that if you have it in the file, the online version of Excel actually won't be able to open that file for you. It will tell you that it has a function or some functions in it that aren't supported by the online app, and that it has to be opened in the desktop version of Excel. So you might find for Excel files in particular, the desktop app is kind of needed to work on them properly. But I'd suggest trying both options and just seeing which one you prefer, which one works best for you. Cool, I'm just going to close that document. Now there was one more setting. So if we click on our name again, go into User Profile Settings, click on the File Preferences tab here. And if we look at the very bottom setting, excuse me, this is for opening emails in the browser. Now, the protocol we were actually using to open up emails out of the browser directly into the Outlook app, that protocol has actually stopped working, or rather it's changed, and it no longer opens emails directly out of the browser into Outlook. It only opens them out of the browser into the Mail app, even though that protocol actually has Outlook in its protocol name. Doesn't really make sense, but unfortunately we don't actually control that protocol ourselves. So right now, that the option, if you change this to no, to not open emails in the browser, but rather open them out of the browser, that's not actually going to do anything. So I would actually change that to yes and leave that on yes for now. You'll be able to view an email preview in the browser, or you can download the email, then open it up, or you can open up the email directly from our SuiteFiles for Outlook add-on, which we'll have a look at later in the webinar. So there are other ways to do that other than change this option to no. And we will be letting people know if we find another protocol that we can use to do that. But in the meantime, leave this on yes. Cool. Let's go ahead and close that settings window. Save those settings. Now, if anyone has any questions about any of those settings or anything kind of around, I guess, setting up your site to start using it, now is the best time to let me know. And just through the Q&A section, we will be moving on to having a look at moving around and kind of navigating through our SuiteFiles site. And while we do go through that, anyone can feel free to ask any questions about what we've covered so far. Cool. As I said, feel free to ask any questions while I'm going through the kind of next bit of content. I will keep an eye out for those questions. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to look at how we can actually move around and navigate through our SuiteFiles site, how we can find things, and some of the different ways that you can do that. So first of all, if we want to, we can simply click on folders, like the clients folder. We can scroll to see more subfolders, for example. And we can keep clicking on folders. Actually, this isn't a very good example. Let me go back to the clients folder, 99 Corporation. I could click on this client folder. I could click on the 2018 folder here and see all the files that are stored in that 2018 folder for our client folder for our client called 99 Corporation. Obviously, if you have a lot of client folders, for example, you're going to find yourself scrolling a significant amount through your subfolders, particularly if you've got thousands of client folders here. So it's not going to be the most efficient way to locate a folder that you're looking for. What we do have is you can actually use our feature called folder filtering. And what this is the text field at the very top of the list of your subfolders, just here at the left side of the screen. This is just under the folder path, and that folder path is telling you where you're currently located in the site. This text field is at the top of the subfolders that are displayed. So this is where it says filter for folders. And what you can do here, you can click on the text field, then you can type in a filter. So for example, if I wanted to find all subfolders that began with the letter S, I would type in S and then press enter on my keyboard. That would show me all subfolders that begin with the letter S, because the way that the filter works is it only shows you all of the subfolders that begin exactly with what you have typed in there. It's not a search, it's a filter. So if I click that cross button to clear that filter, if I type in Suite, for example, and press the Enter key on my keyboard, you can see only the subfolders that begin with S, U, I, T, and E. If I was looking for this folder here, Suite Phone Repairs, and I put in my filter phone, for example, and pressed enter on my keyboard, I wouldn't actually see that subfolder displayed, because that subfolder does not begin with the word phone, it begins with the word suite. So that's how the filter works. I personally use the filter the most over search, just because I find it very easy and convenient and very quick to use. As a matter of fact, if you were to go into the clients folder, for example, and you didn't even click or focus on that text field, you can actually begin typing in a filter, not even in that text field, and the web app will apply that filter straight away for you. So I personally really like that feature. Obviously, if you don't know what the subfolder begins with, you probably won't have much luck with that filter, and so we do always have the search functions available as well. So if we go to the very top of the web app here, we have our search bar. If we focus on the search bar and we type in a search term, so for example, if we type in 99 here, then what we'll see is some results displayed pretty quickly in this little drop down below that search bar. At the very top of these results are your client folders or your favorited items. So this top result here is actually an email. It does have the wrong icon for some reason, whoops, but it has a little star at the right, and that shows that that's a favorited item. So that's actually prioritized at the top of the results. Underneath that, we have a client folder, and a client folder is kind of symbolized with this person icon. And all your client results will display at the top there. It detects that being a client folder only because it's directly under the top level clients folder in our SuiteFiles site. Underneath folders, underneath clients and favorites, right in the middle of the results really, are going to be these files displayed. And at the very bottom, your last results that will be displayed are just normal folders that are returned for that search. Now, if you don't find what you're looking for with this quick search, you can perform an advanced search. So for example, if I was searching for something pretty generic, like letter, for example, You can see I'm only seeing about 7 results of files there. And that's probably not going to be all of the results I actually have for that keyword letter. So what I can do is I can look at all of the files returned in our search results. And so we can do that by pressing the Enter key on our keyboard. And this will do an advanced search. The first time you do an advanced search, it might just take a few seconds to load. That's because it kind of caches everything in the browser so that it can be a lot faster the next time you do it. But what we can see here is we have 212 results found for our keyword, which was letter. Obviously, this is a lot of results to go through. I don't want to go clicking through all of the files to check which one is the correct one. What we can do is we can go to the left-hand side of the screen here, and we can actually see some filters. These are our search filters that we can use to refine our search results. The first filter here is for the content state. This is just whether the content that you're looking for or the results you're looking for are archived or not. If you only want to see files returned that are archived, you'd click on the archived filter here. And we can actually see that 18 of those files returned for the keyword letter are in fact archived. If we went to current, this would only show the results that are not archived. And if we just go all, it's going to show all results regardless of whether those files have been archived or not in our SuiteFiles site. Now, the next filter that we could use here is the file type. We can see that we have 3 PDF files in these results and then 209 Word results. We know that this is a Word document we're looking for, so we'd click on Word here and apply that filter. Not really narrowing the results down too much. So what we can do is we can go ahead and apply more filters. So for example, we've got this filter here now that says in client folders. So we can actually choose a client folder that we're looking for this particular document under. Let's say I know that it's in the 99 Corporation client folder. So I'm going to select that as a filter as well. And that's actually taken us down from 209 results down to 7, which is a significant difference. We can also then apply more filters still. So we've got a financial year filter. We can click on 2019 here. And this is actually determined that these files are for the financial year of 2019 because they have a year folder in their folder path. So actually just clicking on the file icon at the left-hand side of the file here will open up that full path to the file for you to view, which is what I've just done here. And we can actually see that under our client folder, there is a year folder for 2019. And that's why we can use this financial year filter. That's how it's determined that these 2 files must be for the financial year 2019. Down to just 2 results. There's no point using either of these other filters, but we can see, for example, there's a filter for who last modified the file, as well as when the file was last edited. So we can also use those filters as well, and they would help us refine the search results down even further. We can also click on the cross icon next to the filter that we've applied, and that will clear that particular filter. And we can kind of just see some of the general information about the file, like the date it was last modified, who it was last modified by, the size of the file. And again, if you click on the file icon, like so, you will see the full file path underneath. And once you kind of see the results that you're looking for, you could then just open up those files by clicking on them, and that will open up the file for you to view or start editing if you wish to do so. So that's how the search function works. The search function is kind of one of those things that you'll want to make use of quite often. So if anyone has any questions about any of the search functions in particular, how the kind of quick search or how the advanced search works, or any kind of cases that you might have for using search and you want to just check anything about that with me, please feel free to put those through the Q&A section now. The next thing we'll go through is just the favorites and recents tabs, as they are kind of part of the navigation side of things, but the search functions are kind of the main thing that we wanted to cover in the navigation side. Looks like we don't have any questions. No. Okay, that's fine. If anyone does have any questions about that, please just feel free to send them through whenever. Again, I will keep an eye out for any that come through. But the favorites tab and the recents tab. So the favorites tab, this is where any files or folders that you have starred in your SuiteFiles site will be displayed. So basically the idea is you might have files or folders that you need to access on a regular basis. And what you can do is you can star them so that they appear under your favorites section here. And this actually just provides a really fast or quick kind of access method. So for example, if we go into our files here, let's go into our clients folder. Let's go into our 16, actually let's go into our ABC client folder. And let's say that this 11 setup checklist file is a file that we're going to need to access fairly regularly, maybe over the next few weeks, maybe forever. What we can do is we can add this to our favorites by going to the right of that file and clicking on the gray star. It will turn gold like so. And that's what kind of shows that it's actually been added to our favorites. Now, if we wanted to add the folder that we're currently in, so this is the ABC client folder that we're in, if we wanted to add that folder to our favorites, we'd simply click on the gray star next to the folder path at the top left here. That star turns gold, and that shows that we've added that folder to our favorites. Now, if I click on the favorites tab, we can see that file that I just starred, 11 setup checklist, has been added to our favorite files. If I click on the folders filter, we can actually see that these are our folders that we currently have starred or in our favorites section in our site. So that's how the favorites work. If we go into the recents tab here, what we can see is we can see any files that we have uploaded recently. We can actually use these filters on the left-hand side. So we can click on emails and see emails that we have uploaded recently. We could click on the client folders filter and see client folders that we've created recently. And we can also filter based on users as well, if we want to have a look at that. So that covers the moving around / navigation section. Again, if anyone has any questions about that, please just feel free to ask me at any time through the Q&A section. If anyone has any questions that maybe isn't as related to the content we're going through, feel free to, again, ask them at any time. But any questions that maybe aren't kind of related to this webinar, I'll probably go through at the end of the webinar instead. But feel free to shoot through it. Okay, cool. The next thing to cover is the folders. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go back to our files view. Just click on files here. I'm just going to actually clear the keyword out of search. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a new client folder. So the way I'd go about this is I'd first click on the clients folder. And then what I would do, I actually would go to the far right of the screen here, click on the create button, select the new folder option. And then in the window here, I would enter the name for the folder in this folder name text field. So let's say the name of my new client is going to be called Oasis Accounting NZ. And then I would click the create button. This will create that new folder, and it will also actually automatically open up that folder in SuiteFiles. That way I can start creating new folders, or I can start uploading files to this folder straight away. Now the next thing for folders is, let's say we've accidentally created this folder, or maybe we've kind of created it and realized we already have that folder in our site. If we want to delete it, well, that kind of actually depends on whether we have the permissions to delete. So if you're an admin or you do have permissions to delete items, you delete the folder by simply going to the 3 dots right next to the folder path here. These 3 dots actually bring up the folder options. And then you would select the delete option from here. And you get a little prompt just double checking you actually want to delete that folder, to which you click the delete folder button, and that will delete that folder. Now, if you don't have permissions to delete, you will receive an error message saying that you don't have permission to do that. If that's the case, what you could do is you could just move the folder to your trash folder as another way of kind of getting it out of the way. So let's say this Angelo's ice cream folder we want to get rid of or get out of our clients folder, for example, but we don't have the permissions to delete. What we can do is we can move the folder instead. So we could go to the three dots next to the folder path. We could select the Move Folder To option here. This opens up this location chooser. We can click the back arrow as it's currently showing the folder that we're in. So I'm going to click on the back arrow. This takes me to a folder and the level above. And then I can click on the back arrow again to take me into the client's parent folder, which is just the top folder of our site, or the kind of home folder of our site. And from here we can see our trash folder. We can click on our trash folder, and if we just want to move this folder straight to the trash folder, we would now click the Move button. And as you can see, it automatically takes you into the new folder location. We can see that in the folder path at the top left here, we now have this folder located under the trash folder in our site. Now, just something to be aware of, that trash folder is simply a normal folder with the name trash. There's no special functionality applied to the folder. It's just kind of an idea of the fact that you can move all the things you don't want into this folder and not really worry about them. You could have administrators of your site go through the trash folder from time to time and just delete everything out of it. Totally up to you. So that's deleting and moving. The other folder feature to go through is the folder templates. And the folder templates are a pretty big feature because they really cut things down and make things really efficient when it comes to creating new folder structures. So let's say we wanted to create a new client folder and we wanted it to have a bit of a folder structure. So we might want it to have some year folders, a permanent folder, a folder for saving emails, etc. What we can actually do is we can create a folder template, which will allow us to then automatically have the folder structure created whenever we're creating a new client folder in SuiteFiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you an example folder structure that I happen to have in this demo site. Now, just be aware this folder templates folder is just a normal folder called folder templates. It's not anything special. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example folder template we have here. This is here. So this might be the kind of typical folder structure that we use for creating new clients, or the kind of typical folder structure that we'd like every client folder to have. And so we can see here that it has some financial year folders. We can see it has an email folder and it has a permanent folder. These financial year folders actually contain subfolders themselves, as you can see here. So you can have multiple levels in the folder structure. But let's say we want to be able to use this structure and copy that structure into any new folder, client folders that we create from now on. What we could do is we could save this folder structure as a template to use by simply going to the three dots next to the folder path to access the folder options like so, and selecting the template folder option. Then in this window that pops up, we'd enter in the top text field here the name for the folder template. So we're just going to call this new client folder template, which is going to mark this with the date in case there's already a template with this name. And then you can enter a description for the template if you'd like. That description is not actually viewable when you're creating a new folder. So up to you on whether you want to provide that information. But once you've provided a name for the folder template at the least, you can click the Create and Close button. Now what this will do is it will take a copy of that folder structure and save that copy in your template section in your site. They're not actually linked. The folder template that you save is not directly linked to the folder structure that you use to save as that template. So if you were to update the folder structure here in your site, for example, it wouldn't actually update into the template that you've already saved. So just be aware of that. But if we wanted to now go ahead and create a new folder using that template, we can go into our clients folder, we can go to the blue Create button, we can click the new folder option, we can provide a name for our new client folder. Let's just call this Instead, what we can do, instead of just clicking the create button now, we can use this choose a folder template drop down to select one of our folder templates. As you can see, we've got the folder template that we just saved before, new client folder template, August 27. I'm going to select that folder template, and now I'm going to click the create button. You're going to see that this folder is created in a bit of a different way to before. So now, instead of just creating an empty folder, excuse me, we now have a folder structure that's being created under that folder. So we can see that it's an exact replica of that folder structure that we saved at the template. And you can see the subfolders still remain under those financial year folders. If you have any files in that folder structure at all, it will also save copies of those files as in the folder template and create copies of those files when you create a new folder from that template. So just be aware of that. And of course, if you have a ton of folders in that folder structure, so I'm more talking about kind of hundreds of folders, it will take a lot longer to save as a template and to use that template for creating new folders. So just be aware of that as well. That covers it for the working with folders part of this. The next part is working with files. If anyone has any questions about any of the folder functionality, please feel free to let me know through the webinar tool, preferably the Q&A section now. Otherwise, we'll move on to working with files. All right, cool. So moving on then, we'll have a look at what we can actually do with files. So let's say, for example, we wanted to create a new file underneath our new client folder here, Forest Accounting NZ. We just want to create it at the home level maybe. What we can do is we can go to the far right hand side of the screen. We can click on this blue create button and we can select the file type for the new file we'd like to create. So for example, if I want to create a new Word file, I'll click on Word. It will bring up a little window here where we need to provide the name for our new file in the text field. I'm going to just call this Forest Accounting Report, and then we can click the Create Word Document button. Now, once the file has actually been created, it will automatically open up to be edited. Similar to when you create a new folder, it opens up that new folder location. That way it allows you to start working on it straight away. Now we can make changes to this document. So we could go maybe 2018 report for Forest NZ. And if we want to save our changes to the file, all we have to do is click the Save button. Really easy to do. We can then close the Word document. And as you can see here, we've got our file that's been created. If we click on that to open it again, we'll see that those changes have been made and saved. So whenever you open a file from SuiteFiles, it saves back to the same location. If we want to delete a file, we would do it by going to the three dots next to the file. So we've got our file name here. At the very far right, we have these three dots. We'd click on those three dots, which brings up the file options. If you have permissions to delete, you can simply click the delete button here, and then click the delete button again on this little confirmation pop-up. Or if you don't have permissions to delete, you could move the file into a trash folder, for example, and you can do that by using the familiar File Explorer shortcut. So if we actually go to the left-hand side of the file and tick it to select it, we could do a Control and X to cut. Then we could go back to our home folder, for example. We could click on the trash folder. Then we could do a Control and V to paste that file into the trash folder. because we did a cut and paste, it's actually just moved the file as opposed to creating a copy. If you wanted to just copy and paste the file, you could just do a Control-C and a Control-V. So yeah, there's also some other kind of file options to look at. So one of the things is that you can actually select multiple files at a time, like so. You just simply tick the checkboxes which appear whenever you hover over a file, like so. And when you select multiple files, you have a few options. You can download them, you can move or copy them, you can archive them, you can unarchive them, or you can delete them. If we actually unselect all of those files, if we were instead to go to the very right hand side of a listed file and click on the three dots, this brings up all of your file options, and you'll see a few more kind of options that don't normally that don't appear when you select multiple files here. So you can use those as well. Cool. Now, sorry, let me just quickly check where we're at. Okay. Now, one of the other things is that if you want to do things like rename the file, you simply click the rename file button. Click the rename button, and you can edit the file name here. So if we want to remove limited here, let's remove PTY as well. Date test for gold bars. Let's add a NZ here. We click the save button. That will change the file name. It will save that new name. So that's really it for files. Most of the options are pretty straightforward, like download will download the file, edit will open up the file for editing, rename it will rename the file, archive it will hide it from view. It's all kind of it's all kind of the same as for folders as well. If you click on the three dots next to the folder path on the left-hand side of the screen, it gives you the options you have for a folder. Now, the next thing to go through is sharing. But if anyone does have any questions about any of the working with files functionality, please feel free to let me know now. Just send it through the Q&A section. I am keeping an eye out on that, but we're going to go ahead and have a look at the sharing functionality. So you can share files with both internal and external users in SuiteFiles. What actually kind of defines an internal user is a user who has a login to your Office 365 account. Because they have a login to your Office 365 account, they have a legitimate login to your SuiteFiles site. Whereas an external user would be someone who doesn't have a login and doesn't have access to your SuiteFiles site, or in other words, they're a guest user. And the way that sharing works with both of those types of users is quite different from one another. So the first thing is if we wish to share a file with an external user, let's say we wanted to share this date test for gold bars NZ file, we could go to the three dots next to the file and select the share option here. And we have a text field that appears here where we can enter the names of people we'd like to share the file with. So if we wanted to share this with an external user, we'd actually need to type in their full email address as they're not a user in our SuiteFiles site. So I'm actually going to type in this here. And once you've typed in the full email address, you want to press the Enter key on your keyboard, and the external email address will actually highlight with this orange color around it. That orange color specifically represents it being an external user. If I actually wanted to also share this file with an internal user, I could enter in the username. Because they have a login to my SuiteFiles site, it should be able to recognize their name. So if I typed in Jamie, for example, you can see that we have some usernames pop up in this dropdown, and I know for a fact that Jamie Bruin -demo is the user I'd like to share this file with. That's actually the user that I'm logged in with right now, so I'm effectively sharing the file with myself. But basically, you can see that highlights with the white kind of surrounding as opposed to the orange one, and that's because it's an internal user. Now we can use this sharing message text field here. We can use this to provide a message to those users we're sharing the file with. Say, hey, can you please file and then we also have these 3 toggle buttons. This just gives you an option to provide a really basic reason as to why you're sharing the file. Then you can click the share button, and that will go ahead and share that file with those users that you shared it with. We're actually going to go ahead and have a look at the email notifications we get for that. So if we go into our email now, I think we should see in a few seconds. We should see some emails come through notifying us that we have had a file shared with us. Interesting. Cool, there we go. So if we have a look at this first one, it's the internal user notification. Which one's which? This one must be for external users. So let's go into this one. Okay, so this here is the email that an internal user would receive. And basically, they're told in the email that a file has been shared with them, tells them who's invited them to view the file, and it provides a little message telling that is the sharing message. And there's also a link at the bottom of this email, and that link will go directly to that file in our SuiteFiles site. Because it's being shared with an internal user, you're assuming that an internal user has access to the SuiteFiles site. Well, in fact, the internal user has to have access to your SuiteFiles site, so it can open up the file directly in your site for them. However, if we go ahead and have a look at the external sharing notification, it's formatted a bit differently. You can see the sender comments here, the file name, but the download link will be different because it's not going to take you to access the file directly in the SuiteFiles site. Instead, when we click on this link, it's actually going to provide an option for us to download a copy of the file. As this way, it provides a copy of the file for the external user, but without them having the ability to edit the file. So if I now actually click the download button on the screen, this will simply download a copy of that file. So now let's say we wanted to have a look at files that have been shared with us in our SuiteFiles site. We have a tasks tab to manage this. So if we click on the tasks tab here, we'll see that file that we just shared with ourselves. We can see the sharing message under here. We can see the basic kind of reason why it was shared with us. We can see who shared the file with us and when they shared it as well. And what you can do is you can actually click on this comment icon or little note icon, and you can provide your own note on that shared file. So I could say, hey, had a look, seems fine to me. Then you can click the add note button, and that will add the note to that task. Now, the notes aren't attached to the file themselves, it's only attached to that task under your tasks section. The other thing is that if you've finished kind of working on that shared file and you no longer need that to appear under your tasks tab, the way to clear it from your tasks tab and also to notify the other user that you've finished working on their file, you'd go to the 3 dots at the right hand side of the file and you click the mark as done button. As you can see, if we just reload the task tab here, it's cleared it from our tasks list. And then we have some filters here. So we can see new tasks. These are all the tasks. Well, these are all the files that have been shared with us. I've got a sent filter. This is for all the files that we've shared with other users. We've got a completed filter here. This is for all of the files that have been shared with us that we've marked as done. And then we've got an external tab here, which will show all the files that you've shared externally to people outside of your SuiteFiles site. And if they've downloaded that file multiple times, it should also tell you how many times they've downloaded it in this far right column here. It also shows you the email address that they've shared the file with. So you can see that for all of the training sessions, I have been sharing not the same file, but I've been sharing the file with the same email address, for example. You can see approximately every 7 minutes. So yeah, that's the sharing functionality. If anyone has any questions about any of that, please feel free to let me know now. I do see that we have a question in the Q&A section. So I'll have a look at this now. So the question is, do the documents have an audit trail? Sort of. So if I can find an example for you, our backups kind of keep track of the versions of files. However, they can only kind of recognize there being one version of a file per day, because every time it backs up, it backs up daily, so it's only going to back up one version of a file for that day. Whereas if you had saved 30 different versions of that file throughout the day, it's only going to save the latest one. If we have a look at a file, so if we open up the side panel, no, sorry, there should be a way to kind of view this information. Oh yeah, we can see it here. If you actually open up this little side panel at the side here by clicking on this panel icon, this is just username. Then we click on a file here, but without clicking on the actual file name, it will show you some basic information about that file. It will show you a little bit of information about the different versions of that file, like the date that those files were created, that those versions were created. It's actually missing the information of who the file was last modified by, but this isn't really a fully implemented feature at the moment. It's something we might see in the future. The backups is really the only thing that provides a bit of version control, but it's not. It's probably not the full kind of version control that you're after. It's like we've got another question that's come through. So if the external person makes changes, do they need to send it back to you and you save it? Yes, because it's only allowing them to download a copy of the file, it's not going to save those changes back to the SuiteFiles site. They will need to send it back to a user in the SuiteFiles site who could then upload the file back into SuiteFiles. We are aware that people, we're aware that it would be a really useful feature to allow external or guest users to be able to save their changes into SuiteFiles. We're just kind of looking at the best way to handle that securely, because security is a very big factor and challenge in having a function like that, as you want to be able to prevent the guest from being able to access anything else in your site. So yeah, if anyone else has any questions about any of that, please feel free to let me know now, or anytime. We'll be keeping an eye out for those questions. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the SuiteFiles for Outlook add-on. So to actually download and install the SuiteFiles for Outlook add-on, what we want to do is go to the top right of our SuiteFiles site. We want to click on our username to bring up the little menu. We want to click the Download Apps button to bring up the kind of download center that we have in our site here. And here we have some options for downloading the SuiteFiles add-ons. So we see that we've got the SuiteFiles for Outlook add-on here. We've also got the Chrome extension and the Drive app. Now we want to install the SuiteFiles for Outlook add-on. So we're going to click the download button underneath that. Download the installer. Actually downloads the zip file first. You then open up that zip file and the folder within it. And then there's an MSI, SuiteMail installer here. You double click on that. This will run the installer. You might get a little prompt just asking you to provide permission or access, say that you definitely want that to install. And it should be a pretty quick kind of install process here. Cool, all done. Once that install is done, the next time you load up Outlook, oops, doesn't quite look like that, you'll have the SuiteFiles for Outlook add-on load up on the side here on the right-hand side, and you'll see that you'll need to log into the add-on. So you simply click this Login to SuiteFiles button. And you'll get a little login window here. The first thing we actually need to enter is our site URL. So if we go into the browser, the easiest way to get this is to copy and paste our site up to where it says .com. Copy, go back to that login window, let's paste this in the site URL field, and then we need to enter our username. Our username for SuiteFiles is our Office 365 email address. So, Jamie, Suite. And then we're going to enter our Office 365 password, which is hopefully not password 123 or anything like that. And then we want to click the login button. Cool. Now this is logging in through Office 365, but the way it does it for the Outlook add-on is a little less direct than when you're in the browser. So if you are using anything like multi-factor authentication, or if you're using a single sign-on solution, you might not be able to log in through the normal kind of login process there. And if that's the case, we do have a help article on our help center, which will show you how you can log in when you're using two-factor authentication. Cool. All right, so now that the add-on has actually loaded up here and it's logged in, we can see our folders at the top level of our site are displayed here. So our business and our clients folder, for example. At the very top here, we have some navigation buttons for going back and forward. We have a refresh button. We have a search type. The default is actually to search for client folders. But you can click on this and change this to do a search for emails, or change it to all to do a search for all files and all folders. With client, and then a text field where you can actually enter in your search term. Just below that, we have some navigation tabs. We have a home button. This will load up your home folder and SuiteFiles. We have a clients tab, which will load up your client folders and SuiteFiles. We have a recent tab, which will show you your recent files and folders for SuiteFiles, and your favorites tab, which will show you what's going on there? Your favorites tab, which will show you the files and folders that you have starred and added to your favorites. You can navigate around your site pretty much the same way as in the web app by simply clicking on folders and scrolling through them. There's no kind of filter, but there is a search function at the top here. So for example, if you wanted to quickly find a 99 corporation folder, you could type in 99. As you can see, it displays as a search result here. Click on that, go into that client folder, and then we could go into the emails folder here, for example. We actually have a whole bunch of emails saved, but what I'm going to do now is just show you how you can save emails into your SuiteFiles site by using our Outlook add-on. So let's say you're just wanting to save emails from your inbox. The way you can do this is by simply dragging and dropping those emails. So for example, drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop, and you'll see the progress of those emails uploading. As a matter of fact, this was an email I created to purposely not work, or rather to test something. So this one with the asterisks is not going to upload, as you can see. It's actually a restricted character in Office 365, so just be aware of that. But if we've got an email here, for example, that has an attached file, then when I save the email by dragging and dropping it, it will actually save that attachment as part of the email. But if I'd like to save the attached file on its own, then you can simply just drag and drop that attached file like so. So that's how you can save emails from your inbox. It does also add a category to the email, which just kind of shows you that it's already been added to SuiteFiles, and that's just kind of signaled by this little blue marker. If you open the email itself, it has this category where it says added to SuiteFiles. So that's saving them from your inbox. Now let's say we want to save these from our kind of outbox, or if we're sending an email. So we do actually have a save on send feature. And the way this looks is you click on the new email button, you write up your email that you're writing, like so. Saving on send. Whoops. Let's just change the subject. The subject line is actually what the file name of the email will be, just so you're aware. Let's call this save on send August 27. When we click the send button, it will come up with the save on send prompt. So this is before it's actually sent the email away. It's just going to ask us if we'd like to have that email saved in our SuiteFiles site at the same time as sending it. So we can actually choose a location to save that email to by simply clicking on the drop down here. And we can select a folder to save to. So I can click my clients folder, for example, and then I can click on the next drop down list that appears below that to select the specific client folder I'd like to save to. And then I can click on the next drop down that appears here, and I could select the email subfolder here. And if this is the full folder path I'd like to save this email into, I could then go ahead and click the send and file it button. You do also have some other options. So you could actually click cancel send. That will cancel saving or sending the email, and you just go back to being able to edit your email. There's a send don't file option, which will send the email without saving it into your SuiteFiles site, and then send and file it, which will send the email and save it into that location that you chose in your SuiteFiles site. So if we now go into our clients folder, interesting, that's not actually closing. Oh, there we go. So let's say, where did we save that? 99 Corporation, emails, and save on send August 27. There we go. And we can see that that's been saved into that folder that we chose. Now, if I actually click on this email in the add-on, you can actually view a preview of the email, and you can see information like who sent the email, when it was sent, who it was sent to, the subject line of the email, as well as the body or the content of the email. I'll show an email here that has a bit more kind of info in it, so we can see the full email here. We can actually see that there is an attached file, but we can't actually click or access it here. But if we go to the top right of the window here and click on the Outlook icon, this will actually open up the full email into Outlook, which kind of shows you in the proper kind of Outlook format. But we can also now access that attached file and open it up or save it separately or do whatever we want to kind of do with that. So that's the save on send function. There are some settings for that. So if we are to access the settings, you go to the bottom right of the add-in and you click on the settings cog here. This brings up some options. So the first one is to whether you actually get that prompt at all. If you untick that prompt, you will not be asked if you want to save on send an email. It will not save the email automatically, so it just won't be saving it when you send them. And you'd need to drag and drop it to save it if you wish. The other thing you can do here, you can actually leave that prompt on. You can change where it asks you to save your emails to when you're sending them, because currently it will actually, by default, it will only show you your clients folders to choose from, but you can click on where it says clients and change that to home if you want to be able to save to any folder at any level in your site. We can leave that on clients if you only want to see client folders to choose from. Once you've changed your settings, you can click the Save Settings button, and it will save whatever settings you've changed there. So we've got a question here. Can you save an email? Can you save an email over the top of a previously saved one? That's a good question. It will actually create a copy of the email. So for example, emails, actually, easy way to show you. You'll probably be able to tell from here what it's doing. So whenever you save an email with the same subject line, it actually creates a copy. well, not a copy, but a saves a new file effectively, and just adds some random numbers on the end so that it's unique. And you'll see like this one, welcome aboard, welcome aboard, welcome aboard. It's all the same email. So yeah, doesn't actually override the original email that you saved. That answers your question. If you've got any further questions to add on that, please feel free to let me know. But yeah, that was the settings. The other thing is when you're actually writing or composing a new email, at the top left of this window, you have an option to attach files from SuiteFiles. If you click on that button, it just opens up what's pretty much a replica of the add-on, where you can just navigate through your site. Or you can click on the different tabs here, and you can click on files to attach them to the email. Once you've added all of or attached all of the files you wish to, you can simply close this little window, and you can see I've attached 9 different files to this email from my SuiteFiles site. I'm just going to go ahead and close that. Now the other thing is that you can do some things with files that you've saved into the Outlook add-on. So for example, if we go into a client folder, let's go into our 99 Corporation folder, we can actually right click on a Word document, for example, and we have some options for things like attaching it to a new email, sending it as an expiring link, renaming it, downloading and opening it, editing it in the Office app, opening it in the browser, or starring it to favorites. Everything's really kind of straightforward from there, but the send as expiring link function, I'll just show you how that kind of works. What that will do is it will actually provide a link to download a copy of that file, and that link will expire in 30 days. Because if you attach a copy of a file to an email, they only get that version of the file. So basically, this link provides kind of an option for that person to always download the latest version of that file without being able to access your SuiteFiles site. Then that link would stop working in 30 days. So after 30 days, they wouldn't be able to download any later versions of the file. So that's how that link works. It also tells you here when that link will actually expire, which is in 30 days. Cool. Oops. So we've got a question here. How do you track an email conversation backwards and forwards? Well, if you're saving a bunch of emails from the same conversation, they're going to have the same subject line normally, and you'll be able to kind of tell from that. But the other thing is if we were actually viewing emails in the web app, which I'll just show you what that looks like so. I don't actually really have a good example here. But let's say these 99 Corporation welcome aboard emails were all part of one conversation. If you opened up the top one here, and if we're viewing the email here, you could actually click on the panel icon at the top right here. This would actually bring up a list view of the other emails in that folder. So you can actually click on, where was it, welcome aboard. There we go. So we could click on the welcome aboard email here to view that email. We can click on any other emails that were saved here to kind of just quickly view them like so. Oh, sorry. If we tick this one. Okay, sorry. In actual fact, can tick this option here, or if it's unticked, I think it's actually supposed to collate all of the emails in the conversation into one kind of view. I'm not actually totally sure on that, so I need to just check that with our developers and check how that functionality actually works, because it looks like it's just one email here. although all of the other copies of this email are exactly the same. So I'm not sure if that affects how it kind of puts the emails into one conversation. I'll need to double check on that one and get back to you. Sorry about that. But if you have any other questions about anything, please feel free to let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. Haven't actually seen that option. Let me go back to the Outlook add-on here. In fact, we probably actually really covered everything. If we do an email search, it will show you all emails that kind of returned for that search term. You can click on email from here. It's interesting. We can change the search to all, and it will show you all files, emails, and folders that are returned for that search term. And it's actually organized by the file type when you do an all search. Cool. If you want to log out of the add-on, you simply click on the power icon at the bottom right here, and you click the yes log me out option, like so. Cool, all right. Now, what I'm going to do is just show you the SuiteFiles Drive add-on. The SuiteFiles Drive add-on, there isn't really actually too much to go through, but I'll just kind of show you a quick overview of that add-on. So to download the SuiteFiles Drive installer, we need to go to our SuiteFiles menu. So while we're in our SuiteFiles site, again, we go to the top right of our web app, and we click on our username, we click on the Download Apps option, we click the download button under where it says Drive, and then we run this executable that's just downloaded. This will install the app. We want to give it any kind of, it might ask you if you allow the app to install. Of course, you need to click yes to that. Then you just click the accept and update button, and this will go ahead and install the SuiteFiles for Drive app for you. Cool. Now, once it's installed, it may come up with a login prompt, but it isn't always able to pop that login prompt up in front of the apps. So if you don't see anything to log in, what you'll need to do is go ahead and access the login screen, which you can do so by going to the hidden icons in your taskbar. This is where you have this little arrow that kind of points upwards. This arrow here tends to be near your battery indicator, or the internet icon, or your volume icon. On that arrow, you'll see a SuiteFiles icon in your hidden icons here. You want to right click on the SuiteFiles icon here and click the login button. This will bring up the little login screen. And again, this login screen is the same as the Outlook add-on. So you just need to enter in your SuiteFiles URL. It's probably easy if you copy and paste. Your Office 365 email address. And your Office 365 password, which again, hopefully isn't password 123 or August 2018. Then we click the Login to SuiteFiles button here. Cool. You'll get a little notification that should say SuiteFiles Drive is now running. And if we have a look in the File Explorer here, looks like SuiteFiles Drive hasn't appeared in our File Explorer yet. Let's actually go ahead and restart the drive and let it map to the File Explorer again. If you ever need to restart the drive, you simply go to your hidden icons, you right click on the SuiteFiles icon, you click exit, and then you go to your desktop. You'll have a SuiteFiles shortcut here. You want to double click on that. Cool. And once the drive has mapped to your file explorer, it will show up as a drive called SuiteFiles, like so. Now the drive here, what this is, it's a mapped drive to your SuiteFiles site, and it allows you to access your SuiteFiles site from the file explorer. Just be aware this is an add-on. It's by no means a replacement or alternative to the web app. It's simply an add-on. There's no kind of syncing or offline functionality with it, so it's not like Dropbox or OneDrive. It's simply a network drive mapped to your SuiteFiles site. And we don't recommend using it as the main app, because our web app is what we've actually put the most kind of resources and effort into. The web app has a lot more functionality than the Drive app. However, because the web app is very much reliant on Office 365, it can only open Office documents directly out of the browser to edit. So for things like PDF files, SuiteDrive is actually the app that allows you to directly edit those files instead. And so if you're using SuiteFiles Drive, you can do all the normal kind of file explorer stuff. So you can just kind of click through folders to navigate through them. You can open up files from here. You can do things like drag and drop, copy and paste, cut and paste, renaming, all that sort of thing. The only thing is that you probably won't find that it's good for doing bulk actions. So for example, if you tried to drag and drop 100 folders or 100 files in here at a time, you probably find it would have some issues. It's certainly not designed for anything like bulk uploading or moving things around. It's not set up for that. So yeah, that's the SuiteFiles Drive add-on. And that actually comes to the conclusion of today's training webinar. We do have a training webinar after this, which will be for admins. So hopefully some of you will be in that webinar. If anyone has any questions about anything, please feel free to put them through the Q&A section now. What I will also show you is how to access our Help Center. So sorry, so someone's just asked a question here. How can we save email templates? So templates, there's actually a separate webinar, which is tomorrow afternoon, specifically to cover templates. That's where we'll go through all of that. There's quite a bit of content to go through that, so that's why we have a separate webinar just for scanning and the templates. So to access our Help Center, probably the easiest way is from your SuiteFiles site. If you click on your username to bring up the little menu here, there's a Help Center button. If you click on the Help Center button here, this will open up our SuiteFiles Help Center. This has instructions, guides for things, tutorials, what you want to call it. We've got a Get Started guide. I highly recommend this if you're a brand new user. This kind of takes you in a more step-by-step approach in terms of setting things up. You can kind of go through how to work with your files. It's got some really kind of basic instructions in this kind of text format, and then these step-by-step instruction buttons actually take you to like a YouTube clip showing you how to perform that particular function. We have different sections for different functions in SuiteFiles. We've got things for admins, zero integration, add-ons, troubleshooting, FAQs, and you can kind of search through here. So if you're looking at stuff for working with files, how to work with your files will come up. So yeah, I'll definitely recommend checking out our Help Center. It's definitely useful to reference things from here, as well as going through the kind of training webinars. And yeah, as I said, there will be a recording of this uploaded to our YouTube channel, which is simply called SuiteFiles. And I hope I will see some of you in our admin webinar in a few minutes. Otherwise, I hope I see the rest of you in tomorrow's scanning and templates training webinar. All right, thanks everyone. See you all later.